Hey, it's Brian from Precision Nutrition, and in this video, we're going to cover what is maybe the most common question that we get. What's the best diet? And we have a pretty good answer for you, even though it might not be one you expect. We're going to talk about 5 underlying principles that support and help any successful dieter and explain why those matter the most. Let's get to it. What is the best diet? Is it paleo, Mediterranean, keto, high carb, low carb, or anything in between? I'm gonna give it to you straight right away. There is no best diet. Why isn't there a best diet? The fact is, humans can thrive under a whole host of different conditions, and there are lots of different needs. People have different dietary preferences, different dietary exclusions, budget, time, knowledge, environmental setup and social support, physiological responses. I mean, the list can go on and on. And when you look at humans throughout history, people have thrived on all kinds of different dietary approaches, from plant-based to keto, Mediterranean, a general omnivorous diet. If all of these different people have had success on different styles of eating, that tells us there is no single best way of eating. So, how can these totally different diets all work? Well, they're not as different as you might think. Most well-considered diets are underlined by very fundamental nutrition principles. Right? They all emphasize people focus on their overall intake and be mindful and aware of their food intake. They tend to all emphasize protein and vegetables, even if they disagree about carbs and fats. They all emphasize improved food quality, eating more nutritious whole foods, and they generally all promote regular exercise. Let me illustrate this with an example. At one end of a dieting spectrum, you can have like the carnivore diet, right? Which is like all animal foods, pretty much all protein and fat. At the other end, you can have what's called like whole food plant-based, or almost like a vegan style of eating that's intentionally very high carb and very low fat, that's only eating plant foods. And you have people on both ends of these spectrums who are successful following these approaches. So if they can both be successful, how does that work? Well, it's because they actually have underlying things that contribute to the success for both of them, right? They both have plenty of protein. They both ensure they're eating lots of whole foods. No one's emphasizing eating lots of chips and soda. Right? So they have a lot of the same underlying elements that allow them to both be successful. They have to be mindful of their intake. They have to be careful about what they're eating and what they're not eating. So there's an awareness of what they're consuming that comes along with it. So there's a lot of underlying agreement between these two approaches, even though they're on very different ends of the actual dieting spectrum. So now that we've established that there's no single best diet, we can understand that there are actually 5 universal principles that all good diets include that pretty much anyone can apply however they see fit. Number 1, protein is the most important macronutrient to get right. Getting enough protein helps you feel full, helps you keep your metabolism revving, and it helps you maintain important muscle mass when you're trying to lose body fat, and it helps you build muscle when you're trying to gain weight. Number 2, whole foods mean more nutrition. Most diets emphasize eating more minimally processed whole foods and fewer highly processed engineered foods. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have any of these highly processed foods, but we do recommend decreasing the overall intake of them and really emphasizing lots of minimally processed whole foods, because they also help keep you full. They give you more nutrients, fiber, vitamins, minerals, you name it, across the board. They give you more bang for your buck. Number 3, and this is one you've heard before, emphasizing lots of fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables. Whether it's high carb or low carb, virtually all diets agree on it getting in lots of fresh, raw, or even cooked vegetables. Fruit can be included too, right? Depending on the dietary approach. Most would emphasize getting plenty of fruit as well because they do many things for you. They give you lots of vitamins, minerals, and particularly phytonutrients, which are shown to help decrease disease risk and improve health in a whole bunch of ways that we're just beginning to understand. Number 4 is sleep. And sleep is important in a whole host of ways. It affects appetite, energy levels, your hormone status, you name it, sleep impacts it. And the reason sleep is so important is because when you don't get enough sleep, it actually causes a whole bunch of hormonal things to occur that make it harder to follow a good nutrition plan. Right? It increases ghrelin, your main hunger hormone, which makes you crave and seek out food. It decreases leptin, which is your main satiety hormone, right? So when that's lower, now you're less satisfied and you're more desiring food, you're more apt to eat more food than you actually need. So if you get plenty of high quality sleep, that's gonna actually make it easier to regulate your food intake. You'll have fewer cravings for highly processed foods, right? You'll have more energy and then less reliance on caffeine, right? You will feel better and make it much easier to follow whatever dietary plan you want to follow. And number 5, ultimately, weight gain and weight loss comes down to energy balance. It's the amount of calories you take in against the number of calories that you burn. And too often this gets conflated and thought to be just eat less and move more. But that's not the whole story. But the big picture is, if you are controlling your intake by eating lots of whole foods, getting in lots of protein and veggies, getting in lots of sleep, getting in lots of quality movement, you're going to be controlling your energy balance much more successfully to make it easier to gain weight if that's your goal, or to lose weight if that's your goal. And bonus, there's really a 6th thing that can help most people, and that's eating mindfully or intuitively, right? Because this can lead to the skill of self-regulation. And when you can learn to self-regulate your intake without having to, track calories or track macros or track hand portions, this can be a game-changing skill for a lot of people and allow you to regulate your intake and regulate your body weight over time without having to do all kinds of math to eat. Now this can be hard to do at first, so for a lot of people they do well tracking things in the beginning. If you think of tracking as like training wheels, you're learning to ride a bike, then you can slowly take those training wheels off and learn to balance all on your own. And then anytime you need to make dramatic changes to your body weight, you want to gain more or lose more, then you can always go back to the tracking methods. But learning how to self-regulate your intake can be such a game changer for maintaining whatever status you've achieved for the long term. So, when people ask you, what's the best diet? Here's how to answer it from now on. First, remember, there are only universal principles that underlie all successful diets. A key piece is to be what we call nutritionally agnostic, where you don't have a specific dietary camp that you belong to, and you recognize that low carb and high carb and keto and everything in between can be done successfully and well, right? So be open-minded and willing to try and test different things. And if you're a coach, be willing to let your clients experiment and test with those things as well. And be humble and recognize that we and you don't have all of the answers. Science doesn't always know why it works for some people and others. But if you're humble and open and willing to let people try and see if it actually works for them, that goes a really long way. The real best diet is a diet that you can follow even on your worst day, not just your best. A good diet followed consistently always trumps a novel or perfect diet followed intermittently. It also needs to take into account your environment and your social supports, right? Your life context. How many children do you have, right? Do you have other people you're supporting and feeding? It takes into account that big picture and something that you can follow and fit into your everyday life. And finally, importantly, it also needs to include and take into account your food and eating preferences. If low carb is best, but you like high carb foods, you're probably not going to be able to follow it very long. So it needs to take into account and utilize the foods that you love and enjoy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to get notified about any new videos we have. Did I furrow my brow? I'm sure I did. I don't even, it's just how I talk into the camera. It doesn't, I will tell you, I tried to actively unfurrow my brow. I could feel myself, now that I'm aware of it, I could feel myself furrowing my brow. It's like golf, you're like, oh, I did that, I picked up my head. I feel like by not furrowing my brow, I'm less animated. Do I feel less animated? Oh God, I could never be an actor.